Nearly. Senator Siewert.
Thank you, Acting Deputy President. I rise tonight to speak on the lived experiences of the people currently subjected to the cashless debit card trials in the East Kimberley, Sojourner, Goldfields and Hinkler regions. While the government continues to try and argue that the trial is having a positive impact on these communities, I have heard countless experiences from individuals on the card and the negative effect it is having on their daily lives. Tonight I will share with you some of these experiences. These experiences document the raw, on-the-ground effects of a program that unfairly stigmatises, isolates and controls people on income support. Firstly, for many, there is a sense of shame with being on the card. Many are embarrassed at being part of the program that is unfairly linked with alcohol and drug dependency. One constituent told me, "I have never done drugs in my life. I don't gamble and I don't drink alcohol. Within the first few times of using this card, I faced my first real problem, public shaming. When one of the old EFTPOS machines was not working properly and two tradies behind me said, 'Look, it's one of those junkie cards.' Immediately I broke down, started to cry and ran out of the store. I have never been subject to such public humiliation in my life, which sent me into a spiral where I didn't want to use my card again. Anxiety attacks got so bad I was vomiting and I lost 3.5 kilos in a week." One father of two sons told me of his experience. "I'm an adult that managed perfectly fine before the card was introduced. I don't drink, I don't do drugs of any kind, and I certainly make sure my sons are catered for. After being a father for 15 years, my boys have never gone without anything until now. My eldest son has been bullied and ridiculed at school because another student saw me using the card. He is now known as the son of a crackhead. His pocket money that he works his backside off for is now cashless, because the 20% I'm allowed, in inverted commas, is for second-hand items such as uniforms, emergencies, or just a good bargain that would benefit my children. I now can't take my youngest son to the bowling alley on the weekend. It's something he really enjoys and looks forward to, as I only get him on weekends due to school. Now I can't use the card there because they sell alcohol. I didn't sign up for this card or its discriminatory policies. It was forced on me and my children against my will. Now me and my children have to go without and completely rearrange a schedule that worked for many years. It is an absolute joke." Many participants have shared with me how their mental health has suffered whilst being on the card. We must not underestimate how shameful it is to have something or someone take control of your finances the way the card does, to have a constant fear that your card will be declined at a store or your rent won't be paid on time. One correspondent told me, "Being placed in the card has destroyed my mental health. The terror of not having control over when my bills will be paid or the assurance of my bank being a reliable institution means that even when I fall asleep, despite my pain, it's often interrupted by nightmares." The restrictive nature of the card strips participants of their financial freedom, causing undue additional stress. These are people who are already finding it tough and are now being forced to jump through the hoops of Inju in order to manage their own budgets. One trial participant articulated to me, "The card is making life more difficult. If I want to pay bills early, I need to ask permission. If I want to pay an extra rent, I need to ask permission. When I can't pay bills early, I can't even move the money into a separate savings account to make sure I don't spend it. I have to pay my rent, then watch the account closely for days because payments get bounced back. Recently, I went to pay my rego 3 months early, but Main Roads wouldn't take my money. I asked Inju to put the money into a different safe account until I'm allowed to pay the bill, but nope, they told me just don't spend the money." The loss of financial freedom is very devastating for many. This card is patronising and paternalistic and punishes some of the most vulnerable members of our community. When you're on income support, you live from payment to payment. Many feel they are unable to effectively save for the future or provide the support they need for the children on this card. Another participant shared this experience. Being the sole parent of my 2 children without child support due to being victim of domestic abuse, the card was an additional kick in the guts for me and added further to my anxiety and depression. I also suffer and will continue to suffer from early-stage bowel cancer, severe FAP with cancerous tumours, and will spend the rest of my life maintaining my health, including multiple surgeries, and living with life-altering issues including incontinence and a stoma. I'm only 27. On top of that, I have a child with suspected autism and is diagnosed severely developmentally delayed and attends early intervention programs and specialists. With the card, I cannot save or provide my children with any future support, trust or inheritance, if in the likely event something will happen to me. There is also great anxiety in the community from those who are yet to be placed on the card and the impact it will have on their ability to manage their already tight budgets. Somebody also articulated to me, I fear it. I've managed to keep my family afloat by haggling, price shopping and using every trick I know. Every financial advisor has asked me how I'm doing it on the funds I have available, but now the government wants to tell me how to budget. A government that gets more in debt every year wants to limit my bag of tricks. It's hard enough to survive. If you get this, I don't think we'll be able to anymore. These are just some of the accounts that I have received in relation to the cashless debit card. Tomorrow, we will be dealing with legislation around the wellbeing exemption and the opt-out provisions. I doubt I'll have time, even in my 20 minutes available tomorrow, to express the absolute failures of this card, to express all of what I've heard from the many people that have been forced on this card in those 4 regions around this country. These are the people that the government never talks to when they go into community. When they go into community to see how the card's working, they talk to businesses. And today, the Senate did not support my motion to try and find out who's on the community reference groups in these committees, These committees that the government goes to get their advice about what's going on in the community and how good the card is. And there's businesses on there. There's the people the government handpicks on there. There's social service organisations on there. Are there participants on the card? Who knows, because the government is refusing to let the community know who's on those committees. The same goes for the community panels, the panels that are deciding people's futures, whether they'll be 80% quarantined, or if you're really good and nice, you may get it reduced to, say, 50%, by people who you may know walking down the street, or in fact you may be having an argument with. But again, nobody in the community knows, and no one outside the community knows, because the government's keeping that secret as well. This is an ideological experiment against people that have done nothing wrong other than, in the government's eyes, they're wrong because they can't find a job. The government blames people for not being able to find a job and then links them, as has been I've just articulated, to drugs, alcohol and gambling. I've also heard accounts from people who've been spat on in the street and regularly told they're on the druggy card. They try to hide it when they go to use the EFTPOS. By using your hand, you can mostly cover up the grey of the card. Everybody knows what an NG card looks like in those 4 communities. Everybody knows that it means that you're on income support. It's an appalling way to treat people who are already trying to survive on payments that keep them below the poverty line. We know New Start's below the poverty line, and let's rub it in a little bit more by forcing you to be subject to denigration and stigmatised by being on this card. This card needs to be abandoned, New Start needs to be increased, and let's
Thank you,
start
Senator
treating people
Siewert.
with dignity.